Hello everyone. Well, we are trying to understand dimension, and here, if we consider this to be one dimension, and then if we add another direction to this, we get a 2D. That is, it is having length and breadth. Infinite collection of one dimension leads you to two-dimensional face. Now, what will happen if I combine them together? If I combine them, we are getting a 3D. If multiple two infinite two dimension creates a 3D where you having length, breadth, and the another direction that you're adding to this is height. Now, one dimension, as I stated before, is dimension. You are just adding direction to this, and one dimension leads you to another. Now, how is this dimensional progression working? So, zero dimension is a point. Now, if the point is not having any direction, or it is just a location, it isn't having any direction that it can move. So this is the point. Now, if you add left and right to this point, you are having a line that is created. Now, this line, consider this to be a line. Now, this line is a one dimension, right? Now, if you're adding up and down to this, if you're adding a direction perpendicular to the left and right, if you this is left and right, if you're adding perpendicular to this, you're actually getting a two dimension that is a complete plane, right? This is a plane, and you are actually getting by adding a new direction to this. Now, movement can be forward and backward, and plus up and down. 2D creatures can move anywhere on the paper. So 2D people can move either they can move in forward and backward, up and down. Now, what we'll do is, if we add a 3D space, that is, we are adding a new direction to this, that is, we are adding in and out to the previous things that we were having. This is having the three-dimensional space is having length, breadth, and the length, width, and height, right? We are actually adding a new direction to this, that is height. Now, how is this working for the fourth dimension? As we saw, that we are actually the one dimension. If we are adding infinitely, we are getting two dimension, then infinitely two dimensions lead to three dimension, and the same happens subsequently for the fourth dimension as well. If you're adding multiple infinite three dimensions, we are getting the fourth dimension. But it doesn't work that way. Like, if you are adding the three-dimensional objects, stacking them together, it doesn't create actually the fourth dimension, but you are just creating a three dimension. It is the direction. If you're adding a new direction, that will lead you to the fourth dimension. Now, your brain might think that it is completely impossible, but by mathematics, we can prove that it is possible. And even though we humans, we live in a three-dimensional world, we perceive the objects two-dimensionally, right? So mathematically, we know that we are having x, y, and z direction, z axis. We are adding a new direction, that is w, the fourth spatial direction. So we cannot see this direction, but maths can describe and prove it. Now, we have this shadow analogy that we can the key to understanding this fourth dimension. Now, imagine a 2D creature. Now, it lives on the paper, right? If you are imagining a two-dimensional object, it is living in this paper. Now, show this. If I try to show the people who are living in this two-dimensional space, if I try to show them the three-dimensional object like a sharpener, which is a three-dimensional object, if I try to show them, what will they perceive? They will just perceive a weird slice of appearing and disappearing. A sphere, or maybe a cuboid, appears for them as a 2D, like passing through this 2D world. It will just appear and disappear. So for the people living here, for them, this three-dimensional objects will appear and disappear all of a sudden. So 3D objects passing through its two-dimensional world, it will just be a small circle for this case, you will just have a small, you will have this rectangle which will appear. It will grow bigger, and then it will grow bigger and then shrink and disappear. All of a sudden, this all things will happen. Now, this is how for the two-dimensional people living in 2 dimension will view these things happening. So they wouldn't be able to actually view the this three-dimensional cuboid. Now, applying this to the same, we are the flatlanders, and if the 4-dimensional object passes through this 3-dimensional world, what we'll see is that a shape which appear from nowhere change this shape continuously and vanish suddenly. So for us, I cannot actually explain to you, but for us, imagine that there is a 4-dimensional object. So if that object comes to in our world, we'll just it will just come to us. It will grow. The shape will continuously change, and all of a sudden it will vanish suddenly. It is mind-blowing, right? So 4-dimensional cube, as we call them, trisect. Trisect is the name that is given to it. In simple terms, 1-dimensional is a line, 2-dimensional is a square, 3-dimensional is a cube, and the 4th dimension is a trisect, which is a cube in a new direction, right? So that is like a weird cube within a cube, and only in its 3D shadow, just like a cube in a shadow of a 4D cube. Now, how this movement works in the 4-dimension is that in 3-dimension, as I stated, that there is a left and right. You can, for example, here I'm having this republic. All right. So in this, what will you can do is you can move either left or you can move right. You can move forward, you can move backward, you can move up, you can move down. This is all the things that you can do in a 3-dimensional world. But in the 4-dimension, there is a new direction that is called Anna and Kata, which is the names of the scientists who gave this direction, the name of the direction. Now 4D being could appear inside like a locked rooms. It removes organs without cutting skins and turn you inside out. It's not a magic, just geometry. Now 4D spatial dimension is simply that a new perpendicular direction beyond height, width, depth. We are adding this new thing. We cannot see it because our brain evolves to perceive only the 3 spatial axes, but mathematically and logically it fits perfectly. Now, there is a misconception that we consider the time to be the 4th dimension. That is actually not correct. You cannot actually move in time, and the same way you move in the same way that you move in space, right? So you can't freely go backward in time, and the distance in time is measured in seconds, not meters. And also the rules for the time in physics behaves differently from space. For example, in space-time equation, time even has a different sign in the distance formula. What I mean to say is that time cannot be considered as a dimension. It might be a misconception altogether. First of all is that time is not spatial, and every dimension involves time. So time cannot be considered as the 4th dimension, as the basics of the 4th dimension, because when we are viewing through the geometrical shapes, we cannot actually consider time to be the part of it. But physics do consider, in the space-time, it does consider time to be the 4th dimension. Now, if I have to actually show you how this trisect actually works, let me just flip my camera. Now this is how the trisect will actually look like, cube inside a cube, but there are shadows, and this is how it will actually look. They are not straight lines, they are curved actually, and it is quite difficult for us to actually imagine and put this complete shape on paper, right? It will be completely not exactly like this, but the lines are not straight enough the way it is looking in this picture, right? Now, there is this theory that the dimension may be slightly curved, suggesting that we can actually travel far enough in one direction. For example, we can move forward, and if we are moving forward and then we are moving backward, we will actually eventually what will the thing is that we'll return to the same starting point, which actually makes the idea very speculative that our universe might be nested within higher dimensions, and there is a slight doubt in this that there might be much higher dimension, but I doubt whether it's truly infinite or not. I would love to know about you, how you perceive fourth dimension as. Bye. Thank you for listening.